given their presence in India, how important is the Indian market looking ahead?
The Indian market is quite important. Actually, if you look at the global market for naval defense programs, everybody knows that in the occidental part of the world, the defense programs are shrinking, whereas in Southeast Asia they are increasing. We are in an area where the growth is very high, and most of the countries, India obviously, has to increase its naval force to be in pace with their growth. So the perspective for the naval defense program in India are very, very high.
What is the current status of construction of the submarines at the Maregaon Docks Limited, the MDL? When is this first submarine likely to roll out of MDL?
Building a submarine is something very, very complex. And we start this program 5 years ago. And during that period of time, we start by transferring technology to MDL. And one has to understand that a submarine is one of the most complex objects that a man can do. And to acquire the technology to be able to build a submarine is something which is very takes time, and it takes a lot of learning expertise. And we have done that with MDL. Now MDL is mastering completely the hull production. But you have to understand that hull production is not something very simple. It's not just welding steel together. A submarine has to dive. So the first thing you have to be sure is the safety of the crew. And then a submarine has obviously to be reliable. And a submarine has to need acoustic discretion. So it has to be no noisy at all. And in order to achieve that, you have to be very, very precise, not only in the design, but also in building, in assembling the different parts of the submarine. And today, MDL is completely mastering that. So the hull for the first two submarines are now completed. And the third is on the way, and the successive one will be on track.
But on the issue of technology transfer, can you give us an update as to how much has it been matched to expectations, or is there still more in the pipeline to be transferred?
I can say that as far as the hull is concerned, the transfer of technology is completely done. And I must say that the people in MDL are very, very good. We made, as you understand, it's a safety issue, so it's very important that the technology is completely masterized. And we make regular check of the performance of the people in the yards. And the record achieved by MDL people are of very high standards, by some way even better than the French one. So we can say that we have here now in MDL complete capabilities of production of hull for submarines.
One understands that there were issues related to the procurement of some critical equipment which were termed as MPM, the Maregaon procurement material, basically equipment from Armari. One also understands from some sources that earlier the price for the MPM equipment was being quoted at anywhere between 700 million to 1 billion, or precisely 1044 million US dollars, and has apparently been brought down after negotiations to about 440 million US dollars during the recent visit by the Defense Secretary to Paris. Can you confirm this, and can you also confirm whether all MPM issues have been resolved?
The MPM is related to all the equipments that will get inside the submarine, and so it took some time to have the MPM ordered. But now everything has been settled, the MPM has been ordered, and they are now being delivered, and part of them will be built and produced locally in India. So we can consider that now the program is fully on track.
Can you put a figure to the percentage of the indigenous Indian content in the submarines that are being built right now?
But the Indian content is something very important. First of all, as I told you, now the hull fabrication is completely masterized by MDL. And I want to point out one very important factor. I think it's the first time ever that a submarine is built in the country of the customer, beginning with the first submarine. The first Scorpene will be built in MDL. Usually, the first submarine is built in the OEM premises. Here, we are building the first submarine in India, and that's a very, very important factor. Then you will have the MPM, and those MPM will be progressively indigenized, and the percentage will be very high and increasing with the third submarine onwards. So at the end, the total submarine will be completely manufactured in India.
There has been a taint of kickbacks on Scorpene, both in India and in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken. How will that impact your chances on, when it comes to follow-on order? And the fact that not only do you now have the Spaniards to contend with, but you also have a very, very strong competitor, in the Russians and also the Germans.
First of all, I want to stress that DCNS is a well-known global players in the defense business, and we are strictly bound by ethical strict rules, and we follow the OECD requirement. Concerning the P75I, as I told you, I do think that we have a good experience with the Scorpene P75, and we are producing one of the best submarines in the world. So obviously we will face competition, but I do think that we have real chance of success.
One more question related to that. Not only has there been a taint in India and Malaysia, but investigations at home apparently are now gaining steam with the former President Jacques Chirac and also your former Defense Minister and Prime Minister coming under a bit of a cloud. Do you think that's going to impact not only your chances in future contracts but also the current contract and your business otherwise in Europe and other parts?
This issue being before court, I think you will appreciate that I will not comment any further.
You're building your 6 submarines at the MDL. 4 of the next 6 in P75 apparently might also be built at the MDL. MDL's capacities are constricted. It may also so happen that at least 2 of the submarines in the follow-on order might be built by such docks which till now have no demonstrated capacity for building submarines in India, and the government has made it clear that it will have to be in India. Do you see that as a bit of a constraint when it comes to India's, when it comes to the P75I? Do you have any, thing to say?
I think one has to consider that building a submarine is something very demanding, something very complex, which need unique competencies. And to acquire those competencies is very long and time demanding. And those competencies have been acquired by MDL. MDL has the capacity to build 1 submarine a year and can increase that capacity. You have to be very careful not to lose the momentum. MDL used to produce submarine 20 years ago, but there was a gap of 15 years without producing any submarine. In 15 years, you lose everything. You lose your competencies, you lose the training of the people, your equipment is being obsolete. So you need to continue to have a continuous pattern of producing submarine. So I do think that MDL is very well placed to produce a submarine for P75 and P75I.